Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we got more football news. You thought we were done with the
Just keeps
NFL for
coming.
right now? We're not. More quarterbacks get traded. The quarterback market is going to look very, very different from last year to this year because Carson Wentz was traded for the second time in as many off seasons. He has been dealt to the Washington Commanders. An interesting shakeup in our nation's capital for their quarterback situation. But Tim, without further ado, are you ready to get into it? Are you ready to run the table? Are you prepared mentally, physically, emotionally to run this table?
I do believe I am. So let's run it.
Let's do it. So first, let's break down what actually happened in the trade. So Washington, the Commanders, acquired Carson Wentz and the Colts' second round pick this year. For the Colts, they got Washington's second round pick this year, their third round pick this year, and their third round pick next year, which can become a second round pick if Carson Wentz plays 70% of the snaps in 2022 for the Washington Commanders. It's an interesting one. Washington is taking all of Carson Wentz's salary from Indianapolis, all $28 million, which includes a $5 million roster bonus. So definitely interesting for the Commanders because they add what would presumably be their starting quarterback and they take a chance on Carson Wentz. And the rumors was that the Commanders searched far and wide for a lot of different quarterbacks. So it's interesting that they landed on Carson Wentz.
Yeah, it's interesting how they ended up here, but I think some of that had to do with the way the quarterback market changed in these past 2 days. Because based off of some sources, not exactly the most solid ones in terms of your typical sports news, but the Commanders' initial trade offer was supposedly just a fourth and a sixth. But after the Wilson trade that just came down recently, the asking price went up sharply, and that's where the Commanders had to really dig deep into the bag to offer some things for the Colts to then give up Wentz, because the Colts
Mm-hmm.
were definitely looking for that move to make. But once different options came off the market, it's like, okay, now we know that we're one of your last remaining top options, so we're gonna ask a little bit more for us to give them up.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because of the Russell Wilson trade, how much the quarterback market changed. If the Commanders would have been able to acquire Carson Wentz for a fourth and a sixth, I think that's a total steal on the
Yeah.
part of Washington. But considering that they gave up a lot of higher round draft picks
Yeah, and for me, it was the eating of the contract. I thought the Colts
and
were at least
eating
going
the
to have
whole
to take some
contract.
of it, but eating all of that the $28 million, puts them down in cap space from what they previously were at. So all of a sudden now, a lot of their cap space just went.
Yeah, well, not only does it put them down, their cap space is gone. Bye
Yeah,
bye. See ya.
it's
Adios.
just they had around roughly 33 to 34 million in cap
Mm-hmm.
space before this, and eating that 28 puts them down to less than 6 million. So all of a sudden, like, okay, there goes
You
your
have,
ability to sign basically anybody, I guess.
yeah, barring any like restructuring of any
Yeah,
contracts or like some releases, which who knows,
it's
the
very possible, but
like,
there's nothing
oh god, I
particularly
almost called them the
obvious with them.
footballs. I stopped myself before
It's
I called them the footballs. They're the Commanders now. Before the
yeah,
Commanders could do like any, really restructuring. But yeah, this is essentially what their entire offseason is as of right now.
they're kind of going a little all in on this one just because of the
Mhm.
fact of the amount that they gave up and the diminishing of their cap space. They're kind of just saying we're going with this and we think we can do something with this. But it's like I don't blame them, but at the same time, it's not like I definitely believe in terms of overall rosters and adding the QB that the Broncos were in a much better situation roster wise than
Oh
the
yeah,
Commanders are. So
a
it's like
hundred
I
percent.
I get
It's
why they feel like they were kind of put into a little box where they needed to get the quarterback problem solved and kind of like
well,
worry about the rest later, I guess.
it's
But
been a long-standing quarterback problem for Washington because
really, ever since
statistic,
Kirk Cousins,
yeah,
realistically.
statistically since 2018, which is since Kirk Cousins left, Washington has had the worst QBR in the entire league and has thrown the lowest amount of touchdown passes in the league. And with Taylor Heineke last year, Taylor Heineke was a mixed bag, because when you let
Yeah.
Taylor Heineke kind of be that wild horse, he showed flashes of being really, really good. But then when you tried to put him into a box and like give him an actual game plan, he wouldn't exactly, you know, do the greatest. You just let Taylor Heineke need to run around and be Taylor Heineke. But of course, in the NFL, that doesn't exactly work. You can't go play sandlot football for 17 games and then call it a season.
Yeah,
So there were,
that can work to up to a certain point, but in terms of actually developing game plans, game in and game out against better
yeah, it
teams
doesn't
that
work.
won't just let you run around, extend a play, and then leave somebody wide open, all of a sudden that game plan doesn't quite work so well.
No, it doesn't. And for Washington to upgrade to Carson Wentz, I think it's more of a lateral upgrade than than more of like a straight getting better at quarterback.
You upgrade in certain aspects of the game, but
Yeah,
also you don't necessarily improve in others, and maybe even have a slight digression with Carson Wentz, because
because
he's no
I mean,
like star-studded
yeah,
QB by
granted,
any.
there's a lot of, and of course, you and I both, are friends, close friends with a lot of Colts fans. So I know I've talked about Carson Wentz as a quarterback for numerous amounts of hours. And the conclusion that I've come to on Carson Wentz is that he can do a lot of things well. He's got some really natural arm talent. He's able to make something out of nothing. But then, like, the downside is that he holds the ball way too long and he doesn't throw it away, and he'll try to force things, and he'll maybe take sacks, and he'll turn the ball over. And that's where all of those good things kind of come crashing down. So when
Yeah.
Carson Wentz plays well, he had the MVP upside in 2017, but when it's bad, it's really, really, really bad. It is really bad.
Yeah,
So
once again, he was another guy that kind of showed flashes of brilliance and whatnot. I mean, he did have the 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions,
yeah, which is not
which
bad. Like, statistically, he
is
did
not
not have a
bad.
bad year.
But once again, is he still showed a lot of the same signs that he struggled with in Philly, with playing the hero ball,
Yeah, exactly.
and
That
not
got him
passing to a
benched
great
in
percent. Yeah,
Philadelphia.
not passing for a great percentage. I know one of the big things that I talked about with some of my Colts fans is his inability seemingly to go all the way through his progressions and throw a check down. Carson Wentz seems to has no ability to throw a check down, and to me, it's the funniest thing ever. He threw like probably max like 5 check downs the whole season, and that's why it's what led to him to be such a non-efficient passer, an
There's
inefficient
Carson for you.
passer in terms of like percentage wise, because he would start forcing the ball places when he couldn't find someone immediately open, instead of finding your last option of somebody down in the flats or something. So it's like, if he can
I
improve in that aspect, then he can be a very solid quarterback. But we thought that him moving from
Did you
Philly
think
to
that the thing that
Colts,
you thought was once the thing that you thought? Maybe. I think.
maybe, sure, possibly, yeah. But we thought, at least a lot of us who thought that Wentz had the potential to get back to that level, we thought that the move from Philly to the Colts would allow him to match up with that better
Reuniting
system
with
once
Frank
again.
Reich, who
Yes, reuniting with Frank Reich, somebody who knew how
who
to
he
get
was
the
very
best out of him.
successful with.
Yes, but all of a sudden he still showed a lot of that. So it's like, I'm not necessarily sure if I see Washington have the ability to
Who
fix
knows?
that part of
Who
him,
knows?
because I thought that if anyone could, it would have been Reich. But once again, that's why you take the chance on him. That's why you make that little leap of faith to see if it can work out, because at the end of the day, they did put themselves in a better position to win football games than they were last year with Heineke. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz is a mixed bag, and we can talk about what he can do for the Commanders all day. But there's another team that was involved in this trade, and that is the Indianapolis Colts, and they are back in the quarterback market again, 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 again. Fifth different starting quarterback in the last 5 years, with Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and now who the heck
Who
knows?
knows?
I mean, Chris Ballard, their GM, he said he'd like to quit band-aiding it and find a long-term solution, which, they haven't been able to do since Andrew Luck retired. And they're definitely going to go somewhere else. than rather than what they have right now, because the Colts quarterbacks on the roster are Sam Ehlinger and James Morgan. So
not the best quarterback.
No, I
to
don't
enter the
think
season with.
I don't think Sam Ehlinger is going to be the opening day starter for Indianapolis.
For the sake of Indianapolis Colts fans, I hope not.
Oh yes, me too. Although that would be kind of funny. I would laugh if Sam Ehlinger was the week 1 starter, but 99% chance he won't be. The Colts are definitely going to go somewhere else, and it's an interesting journey for Indianapolis.
I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go, but the one thing about this trade is
not Carson Wentz. He's gone.
This is true. First of all, gaining the picks helps them for adding up on some potential guys here and there throughout the next 2 drafts. I don't think
they move
I truly don't believe
gain
that,
a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I truly don't believe, and honestly, given how the way this next season is going to go, I'm actually going to predict and guess that conditional 3rd round will turn into a 2nd round, because I think unless Wentz gets injured for a long amount of time, I think he will play those 70% of the snaps. But in terms for the Colts, with those adding picks, I don't believe they're going to go for a quarterback in the draft with their 2nd round trick.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't think so. I just don't see it. I think, but
they're probably going to go somewhere in free agency or try to make a trade somewhere.
Yes, and for me, I think the most, I want to say obvious, even though nothing is obvious in this line of business, the most obvious route for them would be to go in free agency because of this trade and Washington eating up all $28 million of that cap space. That now puts the Colts at $70 million in cap space, which is the highest in the NFL. So they now have the ability to go out and try to add some pieces, whether that be a more big time quarterback
they want.
But another guy has been potentially tied to the Colts. Nothing particularly solid yet. Is potential adding left tackle Teron Armstead, which would be a big pickup for them on the offensive line. Because he has been incredibly solid, and obviously they would have to pay him a decent amount, but they have the ability to do that now. In terms of quarterback situation, though, it'll be interesting to see who they end up with. I've heard there's potentially actually inklings of a possible trade for Jordan Love. I'm not positive.
Oh boy,
it would be an interesting one.
Yes, it would. So
that's can they give us?
Well, can they give us the 42nd overall pick that they just acquired from Washington for Jordan Love?
I think you're going to have to talk to Ballard about that one. I can make some calls.
I can drive down to Lucas Oil Stadium, pound on the door until they let me in, and go, hey, give the Packers a 2nd round pick for Jordan Love. I mean, we did talk about that in the Aaron Rodgers extension video, that there were some scouts that said a team could give the Packers a 2nd round pick for Jordan Love. So it would be interesting if the Colts made that move. I don't think Chris Ballard will give up that high of a draft pick as much as
it would really depend on how desperate he is also, and how stingy the Packers are going to try to be.
He's too shrewd and too clever, and he knows the game too well to give up that much.
Ballard has done very well with most of the deals that he's made over the last couple of years, so I really don't think he would go out on a limb and do that. Not at least that high of a pick.
Well, another thing that I've heard, if you want to go in free agency, go get Money Mitch, go get Mitch Trubisky, because there are some reports that say Mitch Trubisky is still viewed as a starting quarterback, like a lower end starting quarterback, but a starting quarterback nonetheless. And that he will get another opportunity.
Experience. Yeah, I think he should get.
He's been to the playoffs twice. It was a Pro Bowler for some inexplicable reason. I don't know why, but he has that on his resume.
Yes. So I do believe he belongs in a starting position at some point on some team. Whether or not the Colts make that move, I think it's definitely a big possibility, because arguably out of the guys that are probably left, there's still a decent question mark surrounding Derek Carr with the Raiders, but I have a feeling that the Raiders are going to hold on to him. So if that is
another potential option, if you want to go trade, you can go knock on San Francisco's door and see what they're offering for Jimmy Garoppolo.
That is also
that's another potential option.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. And you almost wonder, is like, in terms of system, would that be a decent fit for the Colts? Because you're talking about another offense that should most likely be run first with Jonathan Taylor, similar to how Kyle Shanahan's 49ers offense is very run first. The only thing is the Colts don't have quite the wide receiver room, or just the receiving room in general, that the 49ers has with the Kittle and Deebo Samuel. it's a potential fit. I'm not sure if I would like them making that move if I was
Who,
Colts
who,
fans.
who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
and
But
there's going to be a lot more to come in that area with a whole bunch of potential quarterback trades or free agent signings. So it'll be very interesting to keep an eye on that as the offseason moves on.
yeah, I think the bigger picture for both teams is that the Commanders get their starting quarterback, and that puts them in a better position than they were, before making the trade to win football games. I believe that also. Is it that much better? TBD. We'll see how Carson Wentz plays. And for Indianapolis, they need another quarterback. That is
And
their
the door is wide
number
open for them. They have the
that's
ability
their
to
number
look
one need.
far and wide. So
Oh yeah, they can look anywhere for it. But I think that's about what we got for this episode, wrapping up the Carson Wentz trade episode. Um, Definitely a wild couple days in the NFL offseason because you have Aaron Rodgers getting extended, Russell Wilson getting dealt, and now Carson Wentz is back on the move, back to the NFC East, where guess what? He plays Philadelphia twice and he gets to play Indianapolis.
travels back to Lucas Oil. Yep.
Oh yeah, it'll be a fun season and just watching how that plays out in general. But like and subscribe for more Running the Table content. And until next time, we out.